This fight very well could end up like Sean Woodson, Julian Erosa, Tristan Connolly, Michelle Pahea. It could end up as one of the biggest upsets in MMA because we have 12 gauge Paige VanZant coming in against Amanda Ribas, who is riding a wave of success. She's looked amazing in the UFC. This fight, coincidentally, at 125, which could very well favor the fighter to the right in Paige VanZant. I just don't think it will. If you look at the odds, Paige VanZant's almost not a minus 900. That would be Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas is almost a minus 900 favorite. That's double what she was when she opened at a minus 450. Matt, we've seen it from Paige VanZant. Lots of success on Dancing with the Stars, on Instagram. In the cage, jumping switch kick, knockout over Bec Rawlings. What does that mean in 2020, though? Because I don't think it carries a lot of weight. And then you have to bring in the issues of the injuries with Paige VanZant. And I know in her last fight, she did look half decent. She got a win in her last fight. She did get a win, nonetheless. Submission win. But in terms of this fight, Amanda Ribas, wave of success. She's beaten a much better fighter. I know it wasn't in the same weight class, but over Mackenzie Dern. She had a great win. And if that fight and all of her previous successes tell us anything about this one, I think it's a runaway victory for Amanda Ribas.
So let's just go through some of the victories Paige VanZant's had. Bec Rawlings, Kylan Curran, Alex Chambers. A bunch of women who are no longer in the UFC. That's kind of my point. When she does fight that upper echelon, she does not get the win. She tends to lose. Rose Namajunas is a really great example. That was supposed to really be her coming out party, and Namajunas beat the brakes off her for 5 rounds, then choked her out in the last round. And it was one of those fights where no one's ever going to say Paige VanZant isn't tough. She can take a tremendous amount of punishment, which isn't something that you should be known for, though, especially at this weight class. You shouldn't be getting into Ioane and Jacek type wars if you're a fighter at Paige VanZant's skill level. And not that her fights are that exciting, but she is kind of that I'll take one to give one mentality. And she doesn't have great power. I know she put down Bec Rawlings with a jumping switch kick, but that's very much the outlier in her career.
That's a bare knuckle champion.
It is. The Police Gazette's champion, might I add. So I just think when it comes to Paige VanZant, she's going to beat a lot of women who aren't UFC caliber, but the second you get up into fighters who are UFC caliber, she tends to lose. And it's not the worst thing for her if she does lose this fight, because Bellator's going to sign her in 5 seconds, and it has nothing to do with her fighting talent. She's a very marketable star. They could do a bunch of TV shows with her. They could have her be a commentator. There's just a place for her in MMA, I think. And it feels like Paige VanZant is kind of the last of the forced stars. I think we saw another one last week with Mickey Gall. There was that UFC on Fox card, on the big Fox too, and the main event was Michelle Waterson against Paige VanZant, and Michelle Waterson's only win in the UFC was against the girl who got punched in the face by Cyborg that one time, who now no longer fights in the UFC. I forget her name. And that was her only win going into that fight, and they had marketed this fight like crazy, how, the winner could really challenge for a title, and Michelle Waterson went out there and choked out Paige VanZant, and then Sage Northcutt fought Mickey Gall on that card too, so it was like, no matter what, the winner of this is going to work out well. Those 3 stars, to me, feel like the UFC just forced them on us for so long, and they gave them really favorable matchups to start their careers with. They were all pretty marketable, good on the mic and whatnot, but none of them are really amounted to much in their MMA careers, and a lot of them are kind of that everyone who I've beaten is no longer in the UFC, and that's not a great club to be a member of, especially you're fighting Amanda Ribas, who I've barely talked about, and Ribas doesn't really have a weakness in her game that we've seen as of yet. Is her striking good? It's very good. She has oddly heavy hands for the division. She has really good speed on her strikes. Really mixes it up well. Does go to the body, does go to the head. Really good in the clinch too. And Paige VanZant, we know her jiu-jitsu is good. If she gets on top of Ribas, yes, Ribas will be in some trouble, but I think that's the only position in which Paige VanZant's going to have the advantage.
And for Amanda Ribas, too, I think they're doing her a huge solid in terms of the level of competition that she's faced. I mean, Emily Whitmire, you have to worry about her on the feet. Pass that test with flying colors. Mackenzie Dern, huge submission artist. Passed that test incredibly well. Randa Marcos, you could try and discount Randa Marcos. This isn't the place to do it because Randa Marcos, it's tough to have a good outing against Randa Marcos. And you may disagree with me, but she poses a lot of different threats. She's scrappy. Amanda Ribas passed that one. And if you want to go back, 4.5, 5 years ago and tell me, she lost to Polyana Viena, that means nothing here and now. You know what Polyana Viena is doing in the UFC. Amanda Ribas looks like that next up-and-coming type of talent that we have at strawweight. It'll be interesting to see how this fight goes at 25 and then a move back to 115. But I think this is a good matchup for Ribas for sure. The other issue with Paige VanZant, this fight was originally scheduled to take place earlier on in this spring in 2020. But Paige VanZant, again, broke her arm. So we get this here and now. And again, Paige VanZant's had so many injuries. It's really a shame. It honestly is. You never want to see anybody go through what Paige VanZant has. But she's got a good thing going outside of fighting. I mean, her husband, Austin Vanderford,
he's really good.
Isn't a terrible fighter. And the two of them do a great job on social media. They do a better job than us. So cap off to you two. It'd be weird if we did the videos that they did. But in terms of this fight, I think it's overwhelmingly in Ribas' favor. The odds show that. This is one of the biggest discrepancies that we've seen in a long time. In terms of the votes on Tapology, at a 985, 88% going with Ribas, 59% predicting the decision win from her. What do you see in this one?
I think Ribas is probably going to win by decision. I'm expecting a really good performance, though. This is one of those rare situations where Ribas could win and still kind of lose stock. Because I think at this point, Paige VanZant's career, we all kind of know what we're going to get. She's much more of a marketable star than she is a mixed martial arts star. And if Ribas goes out there and barely ekes out a win, strawweight's loaded right now. It's probably one of the top 3 or 4 divisions right now for talent. Because when you look at the top 15, there's people. Nina Ansaroff, I know she's having a kid, but she's going to be in the mix in the future, you would imagine. Tatiana Suarez, if her neck ever heals, is so amazing. Joanna's still in the mix. Like, there's a lot of phenomenal fighters at 115. Zhang Wei Li might be unbeatable for all we know at this point. Like, she's that type of a champion. So, I think it's a phenomenal weight class. And if Ribas does want... Maybe if Andrade loses again to Namajunas, that could be a really fun fight in the future. Like, there's a lot of good matchups for Ribas if she does move back down, of course. I think this is going to be a fairly easy win for her. I think the UFC did this on purpose to kind of let VanZant leave on a loss, sort of as a negotiation. So, yeah, I don't see a way in which VanZant wins this fight, unfortunately.
It's eerily reminiscent of let's just do away with Leslie Smith, even though Leslie Smith in her own right is a good fighter. But with Paige VanZant, it's a tough one, especially having the card overseas. I know it's going to be at a favorable start time for everybody here. Of course, the news that came out this week, Amanda Ribas knew the fight was going to take place around 6 a.m. Local time there. Paige VanZant did not.
No idea.
I don't know if that'll make a big difference. Again, that was like 2 weeks out from the fight, but it's never good that you don't know that. So we're both going to go with Amanda Ribas in this one. I think she has a ton of juice and success ahead for her at 115 pounds. Really looking forward to the entire card, an extended look at our 3 title fights at the top, Matt. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. You're going to have to. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.